What's up, everybody? I'm not exactly sure where Adrian is as of yet. I'm going to shoot him a text. As more of you enter, ask whatever questions that you want. Actually, let me. What's up, y'all? I appreciate that, angry bus driver. All right, so we're going to get to it, y'all. I don't know where Adrian is right at this particular second, but we're going to get busy. Trying to see who the brother is. So in the meantime, y'all, whatever questions y'all have until Adrian joins in, I'm not sure where he is at this moment. Let's answer some questions. Like, what questions do you want to be asked this evening? I'm pretty sure you all know what the topic is. You know, can we win the culture war? We're going to go into some other questions in regards to like criminal justice. I don't want to make a blanket statement and say we're going to have a conversation about race. I think that quite naturally, a lot of times it goes there in the questions, but I want to make sure that we are supportive of everybody's questions. I want to make sure that everybody remembers you can give a super chat. You can donate. All of the stuff that we're doing right now is to lean us in the direction of having that conversation about a political shift. I think it's very cool to have conversations. My bad, y'all. Got a lot of stuff here. It's got a new Scorpion. Got a lot of stuff to do to it. I think that it's cool to have that conversation about these things, but I think that it's very important for us to shift political trends. I think that it's all, you know, fine and dandy to have the conversation about, you know, how we feel and all that other good stuff. But if that doesn't turn into political power, it creates a different energy. You know what I'm saying? So let me ask a few of these questions. Again, if you want to do the super chat, I'm gonna try to make sure I'm my best. This is actually my second live stream like ever on this YouTube platform. So bear with me if you have donated the whatever the number is amount that you do for the super chats. Give me a second. I'm gonna try to do these as much as possible while when Adrian jumps in, we having that question. So I'm gonna go through some of these comments right here. Angry Bus Driver says, Maj, much respect to you, my brother. Keep up the good work. Appreciate that, Angry Bus Driver. Oh, also, if you have a question, the way to get to the highlight of the question, super chat. Okay. And we're going to try to make this about maybe 35, 40 minutes. I got another interview at 9 p.m. But I want the brother to get in here so we can start asking him all of these questions. Now, for those of you that don't know, Adrian, obviously I'm going to let him give his own presentation as well. But Adrian was on a CPAC panel that we did a few weeks back down in Orlando. I want to make sure that we're highlighting the male voices on that stage as well, because there has been so much energy around, that panel. I personally think it was the best panel at CPAC, maybe for the last few years. I want to just keep it a buck. I'm not saying that because it was my panel. I'm saying it because it was good energy. The questions were, shouts to our guy Dev. The questions were curated in a manner where it allowed everyone to expand and give their perspective. But what I think happened was there was so much power on that stage, especially from that amazing example that Shamika gave, or that analogy of the Carlton and a different type of conservative. it started to take the panel itself took on legs of its own. And I think that a lot of people that were not who were not asked to participate in that panel, felt a little left out. And I think some people deliberately made that panel go in a direction or mischaracterize the analogy that given. And I think what happened there was a lot of conversation. I was obviously giving up the rock, just to whoever. But I think what happened was some of the male perspective wasn't as highlighted. And I think it's always beautiful for ladies to go first. I'm an old school cat in that regard. But I think that we should have conversations as well with men, especially if we're talking about how the Black conservative movement and the Black conservative movement more specifically, honestly leaves Black voices or Black male voices out of that conversation. So I think today, this whole live was Adrian's idea. I think that it's very important for us to tie in that regard, and so that's what today's going to be about. So let me answer a few of these questions. Jason DeLong said, "What's up?" Rachel, Natasha, Naked Girls TV, everybody, Naked Girls TV. That is Shamika Michelle. I want y'all to go follow, subscribe to her channel, as well as get that book. Support. There's another thing that we tend to do. We tend to say, "Oh, we love what these people do." Da 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 da. We love that perspective. You have to support these folks financially, and I'm not saying they're not saying that. I'm saying it. Okay, so make sure you do that. Crazy, I'm on the site about to buy a hoodie and you start a live video. Thank you for that support. Again, everybody go get some of the merch. The merch is very, very important to our scenario. Also, make sure you guys are all liking, subscribing, sharing this all over your platform. Okay, this is very important that you're sharing this live. Okay. Have I read Powernomics by Dr. Claude Anderson? Absolutely. Claude Anderson is one of the Black community's tremendous scholars. I disagree with him on some areas in terms of approach, but I think that his Powernomics is one of the most solid books that you can get when you're talking about trying to empower economically any particular community. Now, obviously, Dr. Claude is clearly for the Black community, but I think that information translates beyond that. When I say I disagree to a certain extent with his approach, I mean that by, I'm not a fan of talking about, I just want to focus on the community that I'm focused on. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I have. Great book. I appreciate that. Maxwell Smart said, thank you for the work that we're doing. Everyone's a blue collar intellectual. What's up? We still waiting on the brother. Let me text him again. You good? We're still waiting on the brother. Here he is. I see him right now. He'll be here shortly, y'all. Let me see how I make sure he gets in here. Adrian, give me a thumbs up, Adrian, when you're ready to jump into the stream. When you got it, cool. You good? Okay, cool. Bam. What's up, man?
What's up, bro? How you doing, man?
Chilling. You can hear me good?
Yo, I got no audio.
Hold on. What about now?
Test. Let's see.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, all right?
Hold on, y'all. You can hear me now?
Nah.
Let's see what we got going on.
I got nothing, bro.
On your end.
1 second.
Yeah. Hey, can everyone else hear me? Just want to make sure everybody typing if you can hear me or not. Jason DeLong, just for the $25 super chat, just said, boom. Show. Just be Black first. Now I want to address that because you'll have some conservatives that will say, oh, those people are Black first. I'm just a conservative first. And as if it's a badge of honor. Now, obviously we have all had this position that the question you have to say is, okay, well, you don't have to. I live in a Black community. If I lived in a white community, that would be the community's issues that I would address. And so I want to make sure that I present that. Being Black does not mean that you are anti anything else. It just means you're repping the community. If you happen to live in a Black community, You live in the community. Let me see if you can hear me now, Adrian.
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, cool. So we're gonna jump right into it. Soon, right before when you fade out and came back in, somebody gave a super chat. Shouts to Jason DeLong for that super chat. And again, everybody that wants their questions jumped out there right to the front of everything. I want to make sure that you are doing super chats to do that because I want to give priority to those folks. So real quick, Adrian, for those that may not know, please give a quick intro. Let people know who you are. Again, I gave a brief intro. This whole live was I was watching the Golden Girls drinking wine. So this was completely Adrian.
Definitely does not seem on brand for you.
Right, like not at all.
Like at all.
This was completely everybody. This was completely Adrian's idea. I think it's a very good idea. And I also think that, like I was saying before you logged in, I think it's very important that we, there were a lot of powerful women on this, a lot of powerful beings in general on that stage. However, I think that it's very important that we make sure that male voices or masculine voices from that panel are heard as well. One quick super chat. We got Blue Collar Intellectual. I'm Black first. If America started attacking Black people, they would not be saying they're American first. Or would they? And I don't see nothing else after that. But I get that. So let's jump right into it that way. Adrian, you give your perspective, and then we're going to deal with some of these racial components in that regard of, is it wrong? Because we've heard some people say, they're American first, they're conservative first. Is it wrong for Latin conservatives to say, I'm Latin first, I'm a Latin conservative, and things of that nature? Is it wrong, or is that taking us a step in the wrong direction to say we're ethnicity American first, or is it not wrong? But tell the people who you are, give a breakdown, and let's jump right into it.
So, my name is Adrian. I'm a columnist. I'm currently writing for the Epic Times. I've written for other conservative publications in the past. Been in the scene for a while, as far as the Black conservative scene and whatnot. Really took off during obviously the last administration, and it's been good. I've had a lot of good experiences. Conservatives have treated me very well. I've never really had any issues. Most of the hatred that I've experienced comes from the other side. But at the same time, my experience has been shaped by a lot of different types of people and a lot of different, people on both sides, actually, because, I'm not somebody who just works hard to make sure that I stay in an echo chamber. I try to take in information from all kinds of sources. The wine is killing me, bro. And make up my own mind based on issues and based on the facts and the conclusions that I'm able to reach. So to kind of circle back to what you were just talking about, I don't think those two things have to be mutually exclusive. You can embrace your identity as a person and still be fully invested in your political values. I don't think those two things are antithetical. And what I've seen a lot of recently is people suggesting the opposite, which is, if you're pro-Black, then somehow you're less conservative. And that's just fundamentally not true. A lot of people within the Black community throughout the United States are staunch conservatives. They're people who love them some Jesus. They're people who want small government and want strong police to protect us and protect our communities, want economic freedom. We want those things that are core conservative values. The issue is that a lot of people, even though they identify as conservative, aren't messing with the GOP. And that's a question that needs to be resolved for the party and people who are activists representing the party in some capacity, and anybody who's just concerned with, getting people to vote differently. So, what we've seen a lot of over the last couple of years is a movement to, we've seen a lot of people talk about get off the Democrat plantation. We've had the walk away movement. We've had all sorts of things that are designed to get people to behave differently, right? But to get people to behave differently, which means, let's just call a spade, we're talking about voting for a different party. So in order to get people to behave differently, the first thing we have to do is get them to think differently. But you're not going to get people to hear your message and think differently if you piss them off before they hear your message. Is
telling someone that you voting or you thinking Black first, is that a piss off? Or are we doing it wrong by not telling people, hey, your Blackness or your Latinness or even your whiteness comes second to your your Americanness? Are we is it possible that our messaging is wrong because we should be further pushing people to what I would call assimilate, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's an individual choice. That's up for individuals to decide. Who am I to tell you how you have to identify yourself? I have no right to tell you as another man how to think about yourself, how to think about your family, your own personal experiences. You can identify however you want to identify that. And we shouldn't be asking people, in my opinion, to sacrifice a part of who they are just to fit into some category to make people in an echo chamber feel better. So if you want to identify with your blackness, that's fine. And when we look at other cultures, nobody really has a problem with it until it comes to black people. Nobody has a problem with Asians identifying with their Chinese heritage or Korean heritage or whatnot, and opening their shops and having their communities and circulating the dollar within their community. It's all good. Hispanics are allowed to do the same thing, but as soon as black people talk about wanting to do something within the black community, all of a sudden people have a problem with it and sit back and call it some type of reverse racism or segregation, when it's just doing the same thing. It's exercising the same privileges that are afforded to other people that are able to do that without the same sort of criticism. And go
ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say the fact that for some reason we're the only group that receives criticism for doing the exact same thing that other people are doing in that regard really is something that disturbs a lot of people, and it's something that is going to have to be overcome and addressed if the goal is what it really is, which is persuasion. If we want to persuade people to come to our side and to hear our message and to, again, ultimately behave differently by voting differently, that's something that's going to have to be resolved.
Right. We got Jason DeLong with a $5 chat saying, being black first definitely doesn't mean to hate anyone else. However, everything we do as a community needs to benefit our community first. Now, so let's take that last half of that question. Huge shouts to Jason again with the super chat. That second half, everything we do as a community needs to benefit our community first. How is that messaging to you, or is it any different? How is that messaging saying, hey, I live in a black community that I live in currently first? Is that messaging very similar to saying America first, or is that the wrong approach? What shouldn't black people, in essence, and I'm gonna be, a little bit of the devil's advocate tonight. Why can't black people just say American first and that's it?
I mean, there's plenty of black people who do. I mean, there's plenty of us who do. We're not monolithic. We're not monolithic in any regard. And everything starts local. I don't think it's a bad idea to ever want to do something that's going to benefit your local community at all. Again, it comes down to just respecting other people's decisions with how they want to identify and where they want to invest their money. Isn't that a conservative principle? We should be able to put our money where we want without the government or anybody without external interference dictating, what's okay and what's not okay for where we take the funds that we want to use for pretty much anything after we have Uncle Sam take his cut. That's not for us to decide. So I don't personally have a problem with it. And I don't really understand why it's become such an issue. I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
So for me, I believe that. So one, I live in a black community. I travel everywhere I want when I want to go somewhere. I think that even the fact that we say black community, brown community, Asian community, white community, I think there's a psychological misnomer that we don't even think to say, some people live in a white community. I think that the focus for me is the area where I generally am and where I live, right? I don't think that, for me, I don't think that me saying I'm a black man, there are clearly, if you do any type of studying of American history, to say that, black Americans, African Americans, melanated people, we have had a unique history in these lands, to say the least. So when you're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, and that does not necessarily mean that our history started with America in that regard. Right. But I think that when people say, well, all peoples have dealt with some form of slavery, that's not, that's true to a certain extent, but it's not actually true. Transatlantic slave trade and the MAFA, we're talking about millions upon millions of people, to the point of changing the migrating patterns of sharks because of the amount of people that either chose to jump overboard, or the people that died in captivity en route. I think that we have to acknowledge that, and I think that we don't even got to go back as far as necessarily captivity. You can talk about things that were sanctioned by the state. I want everybody to be very clear. All so-called racism in America had to be sanctioned by the state. There was not just a, if it was just bigotry, the Italians with the Italians, we hate everybody else, the whites, and I got to say different types of white, because I think that's another misnomer. People go white and they mean like Scandinavian American, Italian American, right. Anything European, right? Yeah. They go white. But there's subsets in that regard as well. I think what happens is we tend to forget the level of state-sponsored violence as well as sanction through policy that the government associated with indirect. We don't want the Black people to do this. And I think that, it is true that all histories throughout time have dealt with a form of indentured servitude. But I think chattel slavery was a whole nother motherfucking thing. When you developed an entire economy based on just the capture and transport of a specific group of people. And it's not about passing, the pain of this ain't the pain Olympics, but I think that African Americans have a very specific set of things. And then when you translate that again into redlining, when you're talking about currently food deserts, when you're talking about economic destabilizations in certain Black communities where there are specific grants given to ethnicities outside of Black people in Black populated areas to make sure that they run stores and businesses where Black people don't, own where they inhabit. I think that's government sanctioned. I think that there is a highly organized phenomenon to make sure that certain communities, some people now call it's cool to say communities of color. Those communities a while ago was, Chinese American. Now it was, okay, if you're coming from Dominican parts or other ethnic backgrounds, we'll give you grants to start these stores that are not, great, the healthiest food stores in the community, to make sure that these businesses prop up in these particular empowerment zones or whatever cute name that you want to call it. Yeah. I think all of that factors in, and I don't see that same happening when I hang out in Calabasas, when I hang out in Beverly Hills, when I'm drinking, wines that are off brand for what I'm supposed to look like, right? When I'm in those areas, when I'm with my really rich friends and we're having $5,000 bottles of wine, we don't see government intervention in Beverly Hills saying, hey, do you Dominican Americans or immigrants want to set up a restaurant in here, so-called Chinese food thing? So we don't even have to go back as far in regards to slavery. We can look at the lack of school choice, and we can say something like, yo, this is targeting a certain community. Let me jump in real quick. Somebody gave a $5 chat. Why are we so pressed in being a part of any? Why can't we do our own thing politically? We keep begging left or right to listen to and rock with us. I'm going to jump into that. Then I'm going to toss that same question back to you. I don't think it's about being pressed. I think it's about when people say things like, and I'm not suggesting that this is what the brother said. It just makes me think of something else. Yeah. When you say, well, I'm not interested in politics. It's like, okay, politics is going to take an interest in you. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're aware of it or not, right? Politics is what moves the world's resources. So what we're talking about is not whether we want to be pressed per se in any party. We're identifying it's because it's not about press. It's about utilizing the vehicle that moves the world's resources to make sure that our cut of those resources are allocated properly. Overwhelmingly, one political party that has dominated, if we're going to specifically make it the Black community, if we choose to do that, one party has overwhelmingly dominated our vote without benefiting our community. So I think that the conversation of saying which vehicle do we choose to use to strengthen our resources being allocated is a question that anyone should ask, regardless of if you think you involved in politics or not. So for me, anyone that looks at the history of the Republican Party, why it was created, where it was created, who it was, deliberately, targeted towards helping politically, I think you have to look at that question, and you can't, and that may be a far cry from what the GOP is doing right now, obviously. However, you got to look at those things. So for me, it's not necessarily about like tap dancing to try to get in line with any particular so-called party, but you have to look at historically the party that we've been inadvertently associated with, the party of the Klan, the party of slavery, the Democratic Party. You got to ask, like, yo, has this actually been beneficial? So that's my take on that question. I'll leave it to you, my brother.
I mean, I think you put it best, man. I don't know. I agree with you. I can't really follow that. I mean, in terms of which party to support, I mean, you know, why do you got a lot of,
what do you, Adrian, identify as in that regard, and why?
So I'm a registered independent.
Okay.
You know, I used to vote pretty much Democrat. You know, as a lot of other people did. I mean,
yeah, I
grew up conservative Christian. I went to college, liberal arts school, where I got indoctrinated freshman year. I was so far left at one point and open to progressive ideas that I was actually a declared minor in women's studies at one point.
Oh shit!
That's not so. I get both sides, and I get where a lot of people are coming from with their experiences. So I'm not a lifelong card-carrying member of the Republican Party who's never considered other perspectives or believed anything else. Like I'm saying, you know, intellectually, I've run the gamut. You know, I have a network that has extremes on both sides. You know what I mean? But me personally, you know, I was a huge fan of Obama. I saw that this guy really didn't do anything to help the country or black people specifically from the first month he was in office. One of the first things his administration did was send 14,000 jobs to China. I was like, yo, this is what I vote for. It's not what I voted for at all. So,
or that's exactly what you voted for.
Well, right. That's the flip side of it, though. Right. That is exactly what I voted for, because I was the one who marked that ballot.
Yeah.
So, you know, after you know, the Trump administration, I changed my registration to GOP, the Republican Party, and I started to see some things that I didn't really like. So I decided to change my registration to independent and just be completely independent. And support candidates based on the issues, support candidates based on their what I think they're going to do for me, and what's going to benefit me, and what's going to benefit my wallet, you know, what's going to benefit the United States of America. And that just tends to fall in line with conservatives mostly. And I don't see that changing at any point in the near future. So personally, I don't really align with either party. I like to look at things as far as what the issues are. And I think it keeps me honest, because you know, I'm not out caping for either side. It's just when a topic comes up, when a question comes up, I can evaluate that and evaluate all those issues from a more objective standpoint. I still lean right, definitely, clearly. So there's going to be some sort of bias there. I'm not foolish enough to say I'm not biased at all. And I wouldn't believe anybody who says they're completely objective.
Right.
But I think I'm fair enough when it comes to evaluating information, when it comes to evaluating ideas, that I'm not jumping into it with a bunch of preconceived notions, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't care which side wins that particular battle. I'm in it for what's best for the people who are involved, and what's best for the nation, what's in line with America's constitutional values, you know, what's in line with the traditional values that have sustained this country since its founding. And those are principles that are staunchly conservative.
How are we losing that culture war? What you just explained, I would be hard pressed to believe that the general public, in hearing that translation of conservative values and your approach to, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I think that what you explained, everyone from every so-called party would agree with. How are we losing that culture war in that regard, as conservative or more right-leaning? As me, you're independent, I'm a libertarian. How are we losing that? How is that getting lost in translation to you? Like, if this is the packaging that no one that I in this chat, I'm pretty sure, would disagree with that breakdown. How are we losing that? How is that being lost in translation?
So real quick, what are you defining as the culture war? Let's define our terms.
Okay. So to me, the culture war, as you know, Breitbart said, you know, politics is downstream from culture. that concept of, I'll give you on the left side, right? On the left, they have literally just said that, me sitting around with a bunch of these guns around, I'm clearly probably some sort of gangster, right? That culture says that in their manipulation, right? Culture says that we have to read on leftist terminology, we have to reshape Mr. Potato Head to gender fluid because it can be offensive. However, I don't watch the Grammys, but some people saw the Grammys, and Megan and Cardi B getting on there pretty much doing like a soft porn show. That's okay. However, in that leftist culture, but we got to be concerned about 80-year-old Dr. Seuss picture depictions, right? That's a culture war where they've shaped that this is okay, but this is not. And clearly it's opposite day to us in that regard. When I say the culture, I mean how we are influencing the demographic to make decisions for their political benefit or detriment.
Okay. So with that definition, where and this is what we got into a CPAC. It comes down to the messaging. And again, not so much sometimes what we're saying, but not so much what we're saying, but how we're saying it. And again, I think we have to approach it from, conservatives a lot of times are, part of the reason that we struggle and that we've unintentionally ceded control of every major institution to the left, whether we're talking about education, whether we're talking about news media, whether we're talking about Hollywood, they control all that stuff, and that's how they're dominating the culture war. But part of the reason that we've ceded that control is because we tend to be focused on facts and figures. We're focused on statistics. We're focused on empirical data, and we're not necessarily focused on grabbing people emotionally and getting them emotionally connected to those ideas and those principles that we already are emotionally connected to. So that comes down to how we're engaging with people and how we're talking with people. And we got to remember that this is all about persuasion. So sometimes, we can jump into this. The George Floyd thing is about to come back up in the mainstream consciousness again because of the trial of Derek Chauvin. We know there's still heated debates on this. And I don't know where you stand on it. I understand both sides, man. It was a horrible image. It was a horrible way to die. I don't think we should ever have seen an image of a police officer kneeling with his knee on a man's neck while two other officers held him down for nearly 9 minutes, regardless of the type of drugs that were in his system, regardless if the toxicology report showed he died of fentanyl. But here's the other thing. We know that the police department was trained, and that's a technique that is used, that they were taught in their training to use in those types of circumstances. So we're essentially asking an officer of the state to abide by their training and then punishing them afterwards. Now, a lot of the messaging concerning that, it's just completely insensitive to how this is viewed in terms of the cultural ethos. So I'll give you a specific example. There was a Valentine that was going around on Valentine's Day, and it had a picture of George Floyd on it. It said, "Who's going to take your breath away?" Man, it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. And people are sharing this and they're laughing and making light of this black man who was savagely killed on video. Regardless of what you think about the situation, that's not a circumstance that we should really ever find funny, particularly if we're trying to influence people and motivate them to come to our side politically, and we're making ourselves, some of us, emissaries of the Black community.
Correct.
So that's just an example of, no matter what the facts are, no matter where you stand on the issue, the perception and the way that you're communicating on this issue is so fucking tacky. I'm sorry to curse. It's so tacky that you're not going to have any sway or any influence over the people that you say you're trying to court. You see what I'm saying?
Correct. Yeah, 100%. I stand on. So one, I don't think that Derek Chauvin is going to get convicted. I think that they have proven that he was within the confines of their training. I think that it made, it doesn't help that, George Floyd did have drugs in the system. And let me be clear, I'm not justifying that. I'm saying, as someone that has gotten on the stand to help people defend their freedom and gotten on the stand to defend his own freedom, and having really expensive lawyers at certain points in my life, knowing that how things are worded as a person that does firearms trains people to defend their life, the languaging that is this within the confines of what meets the necessary use of deadly force? Did you try to de-escalate? Did this happen? Did that happen? Now we can have I think what happens a lot of times you're in essence having a moral perspective on something, and those cold hard facts come from a legal standing. And I think sometimes we have a moral conversation in a legal room or a legal conversation in a moral room. What you're talking about is the approach of a morally upstanding, empathetic approach to people that, whether Facebook is highlighting it as everywhere you go outside is a race war.
No. I'm not so much talking about moral versus like legal. I'm just saying you have to understand where people are at. You got to talk to people where they're at.
I'm agreeing with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But when we have a mainstream media establishment that has already framed this particular issue a certain way,
right? People
already feel some type of way about it, and you can't come with that type of energy with people that you're trying to reach and persuade. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So not so much emotional.
No. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying in the approach of people are feeling that way because morally, okay, cool, he did something wrong, and the people may not know about the facts of this is okay in our training manual. Right. From their perspective, morally, they like, damn, no different than some people say to me, well, when people will say, well, why don't they just shoot him in the leg? I don't even pull my gun out until it's time for me to stop the threat. I teach people, this is a line that I got from James Jager, who's a great firearms instructor. I teach good people how to kill bad people. Okay. And so that's what having, a CZ sitting around, or this is for, I'm going to do some stuff to that because I want that to be the most efficient way. That particular new little pistol, I want that to have the most ability to kill the bad guy. Okay. I think that people, when they have this lack of understanding of what the rules of engagement are, and they're like, damn, that looks horrible. And it does look horrible. When we show up and then go, well, he shouldn't have been on drugs. It's almost like we're saying, hey, yeah, he deserved to die.
Right.
And when you're talking to people that, right, wrong, or indifferent, have been conditioned to believe that they're behind the center of the scope, you can't then, they're going like, damn, that could have been me.
Yeah.
And here you are saying, well, you smoked a little weed before. And it's like, and they like, motherfucker, I smoke weed because I work 60 hours a week and I don't want to go out and I kind of want to relax a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm 100% agreeing with you in that regard. Our messaging, and that's what I mean by that culture war. Is the damage in regards to the GOP, right? More specifically, black conservatives, is the PR spin too late? Can we redirect this ship a bit? What does that look like to you, if so? Or is it just too late? Is it like, look, if the GOP and the conservatives generally, especially black conservatives or more highlighted ones, there's not enough. They've went too far. Is it too far, or is it something that we can right the ship? And if so, how so in your view?
Yeah, this is like the question we had a couple weeks ago. Again, down at CPAC, and we were looking at the clock tick down with 30 seconds left. It's possible, man. It's possible, but again, we've already said it, man. The messaging has to change. How we talk to other people has to change. How we interact with people has to change, and a lot of it can't happen on social media. It's going to come down to boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. And you still got people out there thinking that, with social media and digital ads, it's going to be the thing that brings everybody around. We got to remember, man, it's only one part of a larger puzzle. When it comes down to politics and running campaigns and winning elections, winning support, you got to have a strong ground game along with the digital. And let me give you an example. And, a lot of people still think that, if you make a video and it gets, certain million views, you're doing something to making a dent. And a lot of times with social media, we know how the algorithms work. We know how it works with Google, with Facebook, with Instagram. We're all in echo chambers by design. the systems that they've put us in set us up in intellectual ghettos, and we're fenced off from other ideas unless we actively seek out something different. We have to keep that in mind, right? So physical contact, interacting with people, doing door knocking, doing traditional means of campaigning also have to be a part of the strategy, not just digital. The example I want to give you is, and don't get me wrong, I have no problem with this lady, but Kim Klacik. Let me just say for the record, I have no problem with Kim. I love Kim. I think she's a fantastic candidate. I've never met her, but I have no reason to harbor any ill will toward her. But she ran one of the most successful digital campaigns in history. That video that went viral of hers had 300 million views?
Yeah.
It was insane. It was bonkers. The chick raised $8 million. So with that, 4 million of that went to campaign consultants. So people are thinking they're giving the money for signs and for outreach. No, half the money didn't even go to that. But the other thing is, even with all of that online support, all of that digital support, that was from people around the country, not in her district. Yeah. That was from people who are already on the right, people who already believe what she believes, people who already believe what we believe for the most part, right? It's basically scaling up the echo chamber. And even though $8 million was raised and 300 million something people was reached, she still got destroyed in the election. So just having that type of presence is going to do it. So we have to get back to combining digital with traditional means of reaching out to people and engaging people politically, along with how we're talking to those people. And again, if we do those things, it's totally possible. But again, we have to be mindful that, what we post is being seen by a lot of people, and they're going to look at something that one person posts and use that to cast the net on everybody else. Yeah. Again, we're speaking specifically about the Black community and Black conservatives. So again, you might have something that one Black conservative post that's extremely offensive, and people on the left are going to use that to paint all of us the same way. When again, we're not monolithic, but they don't know that and they don't care. They're out to win. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Blue collar intellectual. I'm gonna go through a few of these super chats here. This is basic marketing. I trigger a positive emotion. You sell your product or service. A negative emotion ruins or loses the sale. I 100% agree with that. Let me scroll down a bit. I think we had one more. Donna Curgis, no comment, but just a $5 chat. Who is this again? Blue collar again. Cops have to do most of their training independently. Same with hand to hand. Hand to hand breeds the discipline and knowledge needed to react instinctively properly. I can see that in that regard. I think that's another part that a lot of people don't understand in regards to, again, those law enforcement officers. To piggyback on that, the law enforcement officers are dealing with the training that they're presented as, hey, this is the standard. It's no different than qualifying. Some law enforcement officers, a lot of them, don't train necessarily, but they qualify. Yeah. Once a year is, okay, put these rounds from 3 yards out, 6 yards out, or whatever, their municipality says this is what you got to do. Put the rounds on target. You got them within that 8.5 by 11, you good. That's not training, that's qualifying, So I think that's a very important component. I want to ask you this question before we get out of here. And I want to make sure that everyone is supporting the brother. I want to make sure that everyone's following him on social media. I also think we should do one of these again, man, in a couple of days, because this shit flew by kind of fast.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I was late too, though. So
no, well, the wine it made me feel like I was
ready to do it. So
if everyone could leave this conversation, whether let's keep it more specific, Black, and I don't want any of our white brothers and sisters or Asian to feel offended, because it's not our intent here. We're trying to strengthen the overall conservative movement, and to be perfectly honest, we need that concentration in the Black community a lot more than a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
What are some things that we could do to apply the things that you're talking about right now? What is a step-by-step when you're engaging someone from the demographic to translate some of these ideals in an empathetic and supportive way that we are not being mischaracterized, or even that person sees like, man, I thought you was like this over here, but come to find out you're not. What are some of the areas and what's a effective tool that's been that you've utilized or you would like to see more people in regards to their engagement in Black America to spread conservative or liberty or independent based principles?
One of the best tools is simply listening. A large part of the problem is that people don't feel like they're being heard. We go straight to the talking and the dropping facts and this and that. And so just like you would engage with anybody else, like you would talk to a friend, like you would talk to somebody you just met in a restaurant. People like having conversations where the other person hears them, allows them to be able to speak their piece, without being interrupted all the time or without being told that they're wrong. Give people that same type of respect in a political conversation. It'll go a long way. It's something that's helped me out. I have conversations with a lot of progressives, especially over the last 4 years. And, the conversations that take place face to face are far more productive than the ones that take place over the internet. I don't even really get into it with people online anymore. It's a waste of time. But when you're face to face, you have that human interaction. You can see somebody's hand gestures or the inflections in their eyes when they talk, and you get a sense of the emotion that's coming from where they are. And when you can engage with them as a real human being, that goes a long way. But listening goes a long way in those type of conversations, because you get to understand where they're coming from. You also get to understand the type of arguments that they're going to use, which will allow you to be able to more effectively respond if they say something that is a little outside of pocket. Another technique would be to actually understand what we're talking about on the issues, because a lot of times in political conversations, the other party that you're talking with, actually, you may be on a topic where they're a little more well-versed, or they're just a little more solid on certain things. Let me just give you one quick example, because I know we're running out of time, but one of the talking points we have in the conservative community is 70% of Black kids are born without a father. 70% of Black kids don't have dads. That's demonstrably false. You can do a Google search and pull up articles going back 10 years that show that's literally not true. I've written a long piece on it. It's you can look it up. It's at Epoch Times website. It's on my website. But people conflate marriage statistics with fatherhood statistics. Those stats get conflated, and then we have a talking point that is used ad nauseum. That's 100% wrong. So if you're talking with somebody and you pull up that stat and say, well, 70% of Black kids don't have dads, and they know that's not true, your conversation's already gone sideways. So we have to know what the hell we're talking about and be able to have more nuanced conversations, even when we get into the weeds on these pressing issues and get into the empiricism, because the other person you're talking to may know the topic a little bit better than you. So those things, I think, are three very good starting points. And we just have to stay engaged, man, and stay involved. Just stay involved with our communities. Go to support local candidates. Donate to candidates who can win. Go to events. Register people to vote. Be active in the community. And one of the things that Democrats did, and I think Kirsten Sinema did this real well here in Arizona, was when she took that Senate seat, a lot of her events, she didn't even go out in campaign. They would just they do things like they just hold a barbecue, and they say, everybody come out and hang out. Or they say, hey, we're gonna hold an event. We're gonna teach you how to do taxes. We're gonna do your taxes for you this year. It's not branded as a Democrat event. They're just there helping the community, and people come out and they form real connections. And when people think that you have a vested interest in their community, that's when they're going to hear you on other ideas and want to come around to your point of view. There's a friend of mine. She had multiple events that she did. She was very successful in the business realm, and she reached out to both parties to support her event. And she's a Republican. Every single Democrat wrote back, came and attended and supported. Not one single GOP candidate even gave a response. Her own party. So these are the types of things that they're doing, that how they're winning the culture wars. They're participating in the culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the participation in and of itself, and that's been an overarching theme in all of the areas of, even in the Second Amendment community, when I was just like, yo, we just gonna go do this.
Yeah.
And people were like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, yo, let's just go do it. Like, let's just go provide a service, listen to people, present the thing to them. And then what you're gonna see is more Black people are gonna wind up buying more guns. I said this 5 years ago. 5 years later, it's like, oh, Black people are the largest new and gun owning demographic.
Yeah.
think that what you're saying is so simple, but so profound at the same time. And I think I think that a key of it is, you said it earlier, you actually paid attention when you were, hey, I'm going to go do women's studies, right? I'm actually listening to the so-called liberal side. I understand how they want to be felt and understood.
Right.
I do think that some political machines on the left take advantage of that for a negative. We don't have to. We can do that in a manner where it's actually constructive and conducive to defending the republic. To be perfectly honest, and I think that's a major key.
Yeah.
This is a complete sidebar question, though. What made you say, "Yeah, I'm going to take women's studies"? Was it so? Because for me, in my mind,
it wasn't about what I thought it was going to be about. No. No. Honestly, I had a really good professor, man. The introductory course, man. That's how they got me. The intro course. The intro course was so broad, and no pun intended.
So broad.
I'm gonna get in trouble for this. It was just so it covered so much information and concepts I'd never heard.
Yeah,
I was just intrigued. I was intrigued by a new way of thinking. I have a strong intellectual curiosity. I'm not afraid to try new things and challenge my own ideas. And that just perfectly played into it. It wasn't until I got into some of the more advanced courses that it just really got completely insufferable and I had to tap out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what got me into it. I had an excellent professor to this day. I still hold her in very high regard, even though I would imagine politically we're probably very different. But she's a very rational person, even though she's on the left. She was a fantastic instructor, man. And she treated the material in such a way. It's like it's antithetical to a lot of the things that we see on campus today. There wasn't a lot of outrage. There wasn't a lot of indoctrination going on. It's just, here are these concepts, do what you want with this information. So that's kind of how I got sucked in, and then I just went down a huge black hole. But you know what? Honestly, I don't regret the experience, and I think I'm a better person for having experienced everything that I've experienced in life, and I wouldn't take any of it back, because all of your experiences, even though you grow and your views change, it shapes who you are. And if you use those things constructively, it's going to turn you into a better person in the long run.
100%. I think that's a great spot to end. My brother, where can everyone get your book? Where can everybody see your work? I want everyone to go make sure you're following this black man and hearing these types of voices that need to be highlighted even more. Where can people go to get all of that information?
I appreciate that, brother. It's so my book, you can get it at Amazon. It's called The Art of the Steal. Obviously, you can search my name. You can search the title. Things like the third hit that comes up. Social media, almost everything is under Adrian Norman DC is the handle. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Parler, I think, is just Adrian Norman. Some of the newer platforms, MeWe, etc., that's all just Adrian Norman. But my website is adrian-norman.com. So that's kind of a good central hub to be able to connect with me for all of those things in one spot that's easy to find.
No doubt. I appreciate you all for listening. We're going to put this up on, obviously it's going to stay on the YouTube. We're going to put it all over all of our social media. Make sure you support the brother. Bro, we got to do this again like in a week or so.
Hey, let me know, man. I'm down. Whatever.
For sure. I appreciate you, black man.
I appreciate it too.
For sure. All right. Peace.
All right.